Okay, this is Unit 3, Lesson 8. Exploring tenths is our goal today. So we will be using our math journal, page 89, to help us. As you can hear, my dog is in the background. Okay, so here is our math message. So before we jump into our workbook, our math journals, let's listen up and see what we can do.
Math message. 10 preschoolers shared 2 liters of fruit juice equally during morning snack. How much juice did each student get? Use fraction circle pieces or drawings to help you model and solve the number story.
Okay, let's see if you can do that. So please pause the video and then we'll go from there. Okay, so we've got here 2 circles of 10 because each circle is representing 1 liter. So if we divide that out, person 1 actually gets 2 out of the 10 parts of that liter. So when we think of that, we're going to write it out as a fraction. So there are 10 total parts. And each person gets 2. Okay, another way to think about it is if you divide the preschoolers into 2 groups of 5, each person gets 1/5. So you see here we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and everybody gets that. So this is 1 liter here, 1 liter here. So 2/10 and 1/5. Are those equivalent fractions? Equal? Or are they actually different? Let's prove that here. We're going to use what I like to call our cheat code and find out. So in order to see if this works, we need the same denominator. How many times can 5 go into 10? Well, 2 evenly. So we'll leave our denominator as 10. So what did we times 10 by to get 10? 10 times 1 is 10. And our cheat code is this. Whatever we times the top by, we times the bottom by. Whatever we times the bottom by, we times the top by. So we'll use that cheat code times 1. 2 times 1 is 2. So that stayed the same. But now what did we times by 5 to get 10? We times it by 2. So whatever we times the bottom by, we times the top by. 1 times 2 is 2. So we just proved that 2/10 is equal to 1/5. Okay, I've got our 10th fraction pieces. I'm going to prove it to us in this way as well. So there's 2/10, and this is our fifths, 1/5. And they are exactly lined up, no extra spaces. Okay, so we proved that 2/10 is equal to 1/5. Now I want us to think, what are the different ways to write 2/10? So we did it as a fraction. Now let's think of it as written out. We'd write 2-tenths in words. That THS helps us know that it's after the whole number. Another way we write is 0 and 2 in our 10th spot. So this is our 10th place. And this would be our 100th place. 0 in our 100ths. I'll write tenths there. There's no 100ths. We'll talk more in the next few lessons about how to write it as a decimal number. That's what this is. But I just wanted to do a little bit of a preview to show you how we write those numbers out. Okay, I'm going to show us where 2/10 is on our number line. So I've got a whole number 1, a whole 0. Our midpoint is halfway. So we are talking about tenths. So how do we do a whole? We do 10/10. Okay, and up there we put 10 in our denominator every single place. So I'm going to do 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Oops, 10 here as well. 10, 10, 10. So we just count all the way till our whole. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tenths. So where would be 2 tenths? Right here. How we write that as a decimal? 0.2 on top. So I'm showing you all of our different ways to write 2 tenths. Quick review with the power of television right here. So we've got tenths here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 plus 5 is 10. So really 1/10 is right here. So how many would we need to cover that whole? We would need all 10 of them. Remember? It would cover all 10 of them. So how we write 1/10 is 0.1. How we write 2 tenths, 0.2, and that would be 2 of these. Okay, 3 tenths, 0.3, 4, 0, and 4, and so on. Okay, so that would be 4 tenths. So now I'm going to ask you this, which would be larger? 0 and, remember that and means decimal place, 0 and 3 tenths, or 0 and 8 tenths, which is larger? Well, think to yourself, look at those fraction pieces, which is larger? 3 tenths is this much, 8 tenths is this much. 8 tenths is larger and has more. So even though there's a 10 on the bottom, it doesn't mean that one is bigger. Then we look at the top number and see which is larger. So if we have tenths 3 and tenths 8, if the fractions on the bottom is bigger or is the same, then we look at the numerator to see which is the larger number, 3 or 8. And in this case, 8 is. So 8 tenths is larger. So 3 tenths is less than 8 tenths. It is jealous and is gonna eat it, right? Chomp it all up. Now we're gonna take it one step further. Which one's greater, 1 and 2 tenths or 0 and 9 tenths? Think about it. So 1 and, that means a whole, and 2 tenths. That's our first option. Is that bigger or smaller than 9 tenths? And here's our tenths pieces. That's our other option. Which was bigger? Well, if this was a pizza or a cookie, let's say a cookie, I'd want the whole cookie plus this extra little bit. If I said 9 tenths, that wouldn't even be a whole cookie. So that tells me that 9 tenths is less than 1 and 2 tenths. Okay, our next one, here we go. And then we'll hop into our math journal, I promise. So which is less, 0 or 1/10? Well, 0 means you have nothing. There's not even any fraction pieces. 1/10 would be one of these. So you've got nothing or you've got one fraction piece. So which is greater? 0 is less than 1/10. Okay, please open up to your math journal, page 89, and I'll see you there. Power of television. Okay, so here we go. Page 89, math journal. We got these fractions filled in for us. So write a fraction and a decimal below to show each circle. We are looking at the shaded part. So how many pieces are shaded? Well, as our fraction, we already know we have 10 pieces. So 10 goes in the denominator. Okay, so now we count up. Well, 10 minus 2 is 8, or you could count them all out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 tenths. How do we write that as a decimal? 0 and 8 tenths. Okay, next one, fraction, it's tenths. Okay, half of 10 is 5, or you could take the time to count it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Think to yourself, how do we write it as a decimal? Let's look back. So I don't have a whole plus an extra, so that tells me zeros in the front in our ones place. And how many tenths do we have? Our tenths, when we have that THS, that it means it's after that decimal point. So 1 and 5 tenths. Okay, now this one, is it tenths again? No, so now we need to count how many there are total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're gonna have 5 in the denominator. And how many in the numerator? Write it. If you said 3/5, you are correct. Hold up. We don't know how to do fifths as a decimal. Or do we? Okay, let's make it into a tenth using our cheat code. Okay, what times 5 is 10? Whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. Your turn. What times 5 was 10? 2. Whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. 3 times 2 is 6. So now how do we write 6 tenths? Because they're the exact same thing. We go 0 and 6 tenths. Okay, here we go. Now we're gonna try, this time we have to shade it. So what does this 0.1 mean? 0 and 1/10. So I'll shade that in. How do I write it as a fraction? 0, oopsies, fraction, not decimal. We know there's in tenths pieces, so we go 1 on top. Your turn. Pause the video, try number 5. And yes, please pause the video. That helps with your learning. Because if you just watch me the whole time, you're not thinking for yourself. Okay, quick shade, 9/10. I shaded in 9. I did 9 on the numerator, 10 on the bottom. Okay, we've got a tricky one here, 4/10. Oh, since they already told us 4/10, 5, we can divide these 5 into 10 just by putting them all in half, can't we? And we could shade them in. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4. And if we need to double check, we can make sure that that equaled 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So what is our fraction? 4/10. Or how many total fifths did we fill in? We filled in this one and this one. So we filled in 2/5. I could double check to make sure that's equivalent. 5 times 2 is 10. 2 times 2, which whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top, is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, here we go. Now we are going to think greater than or less than. Okay, well, here we go. What's it bigger, 2 or 9? 2/10 or 9/10? 9/10 is bigger, so 2/10 is less than 9/10. 7 and 6, which is bigger? 7/10. I would like 7 slices of pizza instead of 6. Okay, try 9 through 11 on your own. Okay, we're gonna check them. 9, 1 and 4/10 is greater than 1 and 3/10. 3, oh, if you were only looking behind the decimal, you maybe thought the opposite, but we've got a whole 3, so that means you have 3 whole ones and 2 little slices all to yourself versus only 1 whole one and this much. Okay, I know that was a really good circle, wasn't it? Okay, next, 3/10 or 5/10. 3/10 is less than 5/10. The next one, 1/10 and 1/10, they are the same. Try the last two. And this other one, so we have 2 wholes and a tenth, 2 wholes and 2/10. So 2 and 1/10 is less than 2 and 2/10. 10 and 1/10 is less than 11 and 1/10. And that's our lesson for today. Thanks for tuning in.